Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony Blanc, and today I'm in conversation with Nighat Qureishi, who is a deputy of the Corporation of the City of London. Lovely to see you. Thank you very much.
Good to see you too, Tony. Thank you for having me today.
Well, that's a pleasure. Let's start off with your career in reinsurance. You know, that's been the bulk of your business career?
It has indeed. I think it's been nearly 25 years now in reinsurance specifically. And it didn't start off that way. It's the old adage, you always fall into insurance. It's never a career path that you
Yeah.
We're looking at your career options. And definitely my mum and dad have never heard of it, and neither had I. Fell into it. I'm actually as you say in the old days, a computer scientist, graduating from UCL in computer science. But these days, it seems to be a very old notion to be a computer scientist, and there's all these other new names associated, like data scientists and things like that.
Of course, the mystique of computer scientists is lost, bearing in mind that children of 10 or less can do coding and stuff like that, presumably.
It is, and things have moved on, and it's great that it's moved on. That's what technology is, an enabler, and that's what's so fascinating. And we have benefited as a society immensely from it. Just in point, the as a very new councillor, which I'm sure we'll get onto, you can see how they're very oldie-woldy and stuck in some very traditional ways. And moving to a modern, process will take a little bit more time. So yes.
So, have you always been in the city?
I have. You won't believe it. I was born and brought up in London, and I've always had a career in the city. I did a stint overseas. I was based out in Asia, running the India office from 2015 to 2019. Enjoyed my time overseas very much. However, London is London at the end of the day,
Yeah.
and the square mile in particular. So very much within my DNA.
And I mean, from an insurance perspective and a reinsurance perspective, Asia is a very important growing market, isn't it?
That's right. So the thing about the Asia market is that it hasn't become either flatlined. It's actually a very, very high growth, potential growth area. The great news is that other companies and regulators, they've always seen the potential in Asia. The mindset of the Asians as well is changing, and also the concept of insurance is changing. And even if you have laws enforced, as in, say, motor insurance, sometimes it's very difficult to get people to actually, pay for motor insurance because, let's face it, it is still, in some pockets, it's still a developing world.
Yeah.
So what do you balance? Do you balance, paying the electricity meter, or do you balance paying the, motor insurance? So, but that's now paving way with InsurTech. That's very much supporting and helping the industry in that region. And again, that's bringing down, as you know, cost of transactions, cost of operations, things like that, making it highly more affordable. So definitely it's one to watch.
Tell us a little bit about your involvement with the Chartered Insurance Institute.
Actually, it's a brilliant professional organisation to support the insurance industry in benchmarking, standardisation of what your knowledge is, how you would apply it, and resources. So the Chartered Insurance Institute supports a bigger, wider network. It's global, it's worldwide, and it's a brilliant institute because it definitely engages all of the members in some form or other. And it also seems to be able to recognise that what is the changing winds as well. So it's not stuck in its history, and it's not stuck in its old ways of what insurance meant. One of the areas that we've seen grow quite well in the Chartered Insurance Institute is the takaful side of things, which is to do with insurance in the Islamic world. So they've brought along a huge area in their module bases and things like that to be able to appeal to people who also want to go down those routes. And really, the Chartered Insurance Institute does a great job. And if you're not part of it, I thoroughly recommend you join it.
Right. Okay. I did that years ago. I did that in the last century. In fact, I think I did it in about 1965. So, but
And you
there
are
we
so
are.
happy you did. There you go.
Let's get on to your attraction of public service, because it's
Yes.
quite a big leap, actually, sort of going from a career and then going into public service, and then presumably trying to run the two things in parallel.
It is, Tony, but one of the attractions of this particular office is that it's to do with London.
Yeah.
And I'm really pleased that I can somehow have been an influencer in the square mile. And that really was my, stepping stone into this role. If it was based somewhere else, I don't think I would have bothered, to be honest. But because it's to do with London, and I feel I am a Londoner, and also I go by a montage that if you're not visible, you're invisible. So I really wanted to represent London and the City of London.
And
So hence, yeah.
yeah, and we've got to stress that we're talking about the corporation of the City of London, not the London Assembly or anything like that. We're talking about this unique body within the square mile that looks after things and makes things work.
Well, unique is an understatement. I think it's a rarity in itself. I
Yeah,
believe, the actual City of London Corporation, as you know, has been going for 1,000+ years. And it's one of those bodies which attracted, in the old days, all the business people who worked in the city. And then recently, I think perhaps maybe, I may be wrong, please don't quote me, in maybe the last 10 years or so, where they've widened who could actually come forward and, fulfill these common councillor roles, which
yeah.
is what I'm doing, which is what I do.
Okay, let's take a look. There are no political parties within the corporation. You're all independent.
I think I think I'm not saying we're brainwashed, but we do seem to all get on with each other very well, irrespective of our political bias. It's
Yeah,
amazing. The ethos has always been that you stand predominantly as an independent, and evidently people have decided to come forward to represent their own political parties. But the difference is that this is not a local government. We are not presenting national government policies at local level. We don't have a mandate to do that, and I think it's actually quite incorrect. So we represent the City of London. We want to do what's best for the City of London. And we take it in the framework of being all independents of political bias. So I think it does work because we do have then I think better conversations around the table. Um, Parliament always do these cross-party conversations and things like that. In the corporation, it's been working very well.
yeah. How does the nomination process work? Are the livery companies involved, or?
So you're asking the wrong person. I'm one of the people who fell through the cracks. I've been in the city for so long. I had never been approached by a livery company or such. They do definitely have an influence on the voting power, but in my case, no, I'm not. And I think it does work for your professional. So, as you know, if you're a lawyer, an accountant, a computer scientist, or any of these normal professions in the city, if you're a goldsmith, if there's so many variants, and that does support bringing in the candidacy for the nominations for the Common Councillor, definitely.
Okay, and so when you stood for election, were there other members trying to get the same seat?
Actually, as a brand new newbie to the whole process and having no information about what the election process was, I
Yeah,
very naively aligned it to a normal general election of my local MP.
yeah.
And I think that was perhaps my saviour, because if I had known what it does entail, I think it would have turned out very differently. So I'm glad to say the old shoe leather was in force, going around, talking to the voters,
Yeah.
speaking to the voters, engaging, finding out what was happening, what was not happening. And it is actually quite a tight framework of about 3 weeks once you've been nominated and
Hmm.
until polling day.
Hmm.
And that was a big eye opener for me, because I'd never decided to join the elections, beforehand. So people didn't know about me, didn't know where I was coming from, and I was able to represent, my constituents very well, and hence I got elected.
So you're involved with the Billingsgate Ward.
Yes, so
Yeah.
we have 25 wards in the square mile.
Hmm.
Um, our wonderful website, cityof london.gov.uk, gives you all the history and background of the boundaries. And the Billingsgate ward is actually very, very close, and is the pocket where I have been working in the insurance industry for the last 20 plus years. So I've been walking up and down London Bridge and round that area all my, career life. So I'm very familiar with it, and it's a very local place and local area to me, and I'm very well aware of all the companies there as well. So that's been great to represent Billingsgate, and it's
Yeah.
been a privilege. Yeah.
It was a sort of natural thing to do.
For me, it was. It
Yeah.
was a natural. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tony. It's not like I have spare time or anything, but
No,
it
no, no,
does.
no.
It was. But it was. It seems like a natural, great succession thing for myself.
How many female deputies are there?
Now that's great, because I understand during the election process, the city was very keen to bring in a more diverse voice. And I don't have an exact number for you this morning, so apologies. But the good news is that they had been aiming for an increase of about 10%
Hmm.
in the city, and that was totally, put to the side, and I think it's come in at about 30%.
That's pretty good,
So
isn't
we
it?
have a very, very, very good high representation of women now in the corporation, City of London Corporation now. Yeah.
Um, Taking it a stage further as your political career develops, you hope eventually, presumably, to become an alderman. Can I say alderman?
I have no issues with it. I
Right. Okay.
don't.
Well, that's good.
I'm still too green to have an idea about it.
But there are a few female aldermen. Yes.
There are indeed, there are
Yeah.
indeed, and that's also supporting the changes going on in the city. As you know, the aldermanic elections are run in the same way as the common councillor elections, and they've also been very helpful as women to support other women in the corporation as well. So that's been wonderful,
Mm.
and also gives a very, as you know, different perspective on different decisions being made in the city.
Yeah. And of course, in the fairly recent past, we've had two lady Lord Mayors.
That's wonderful, and it's been brilliant, and it supports the fact that, gender equality does exist. So
Yeah.
it's also very helpful to hear. Yes, it's on the slim side, only two. But the thing is, again, meritocracy does, take trumps. So
Yeah.
I do always want to have the best person in the job rather than, than based on other factors.
Yeah. Um, have you become a freeman of the City of London as a result of your election, or how does that
Well,
work?
actually, I was very fortunate to be a Freeman of the City a few years ago
Hmm.
and I was nominated purely because of my reinsurance services to the city. But that is a kind of a requirement to be a common councillor or alderman.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
it's not too difficult to become a freeman these days. So it's not something that should be seen as a barrier either.
Okay. And in terms of the actual workings of the corporation, how often do you have meetings? Because we're going to go on to
So
your committees later.
So that was another shocker. That was something I was not prepared for. And it's all a lie that they tell you that it's only 1 hour a week. That's all a lie.
But that's politics.
And that's politics, which I've come to realise.
Yeah.
So we have a monthly court meeting,
Right.
monthly,
Mm-hmm.
and that's about 2 hours ish every month. And that's where all the councillors and the aldermen and the Lord Mayor, everyone convenes. And and I'm sure you may have seen the YouTube channel, because everything's publicly broadcasted. So the agenda is made public, and the shenanigans going inside are public, as well. So that's once a month at the court. Then on top of that, there are committee meetings.
Yeah.
And if we think about it, the reason why you are in this role is to be able to support the decision making that affects the square mile, and that's through these committees. And there are ward committees, which means a representative from the ward would be invited to sit on those committees. So by de facto, I sit on the Culture, Heritage and Libraries Committee. So that's to support all the decisions and all of the issues surrounding those areas. I also sit on the Finance Committee. So as you're aware, it talks about the budgets and the any other problems going on in the finance areas. And interestingly, I think that the Finance Committee has many subcommittees, because there are so many different pockets of areas that need to be looked into. So it just cannot be addressed in one, overall grand committee.
And the sort of support you get from, are they local government officers or civil servants, the public service in the corporation?
Yes, so Tony, that's right. So we have our own officers in the corporation. So they are our civil servants.
Yeah.
And they're the people who have that's their day job, to be able to make sure that the papers that are being presented have been thoroughly reviewed, and the numbers have been thoroughly calculated and things like that. And we do get then the summaries of what they are presenting as for decision making. So we sit on like the board, and we make sure that we definitely have oversight, some governance, looking at interrogation of different decision makings, and then we come to some kind of landing within the meetings.
Because you sometimes get the impression in central government, and also if you take Alderney, for example, that the civil servants tend to drive the thing, whereas really the politicians should be driving it and the civil servants should be administering it. How does that fit in with you?
I think there is a balance there, because as we know, we are really bringing our professional skills into the corporation. Tony, we are not remunerated for this role, really. We are not being given a big salary to do it, and we do rely on the officers to be able to who are being paid to do their job, to do it to the best of their abilities. And the caliber and quality of officers that I've met on some of the committees has been astounding. And I think we'll go on to talk about one or two of them. So we do definitely provide a sounding board, and we do definitely provide ideas and definitely provide input to what we see could be done better, improved, or should not have been done in the first place. And the officers do take on board our comments and, do help us. So I wouldn't say that they would, they're influencers or anything like that. It's definitely more the case that we would be able to
Yeah.
engage and we would be able to provide feedback and be able to either block a decision or approve a decision. And
Yeah.
basically, you know, the officers have to be really, really on their game to make sure that they provide a very valid argument for the decision to go through.
So the members drive the process.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
definitely, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, can we have a look at some of your appointments? Because you're the Deputy Chairman of the Grants Committee of the Bridge House Estates Board. Tell me what the Bridge House Estate is all about.
So the Bridge House Estates is one of the amazing, amazing committees in the corporation. And it's to do with, in the old days, the levies were provided by people who would cross the bridges in
Yeah.
London.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so this is basically the maintenance fund for those bridges, say Tower Bridge, London Bridge, etc. So there are 5 of those. So the Bridge House Estates Board has therefore been going for over 600-700 years, I believe, at least from my knowledge. And therefore, to maintain and upkeep, say, Tower Bridge, it runs in the millions, I think. And it's such an iconic building and also one of the flagship bridges, you know, recognised globally. So Tower Bridge as well. You just, you know, can't tell the immense pride I have that I'm involved in being able to say that yes, I'm part of the team that oversees, you know, these iconic landmarks. But aside from that, there is therefore surplus funds which had been decided before I joined that could be given back to London in the form of this charitable trust, and that's the City Bridge Trust.
Okay.
And that's the charitable giving arm of that. And they have done wonderful work, and I sit as the deputy chair on that board. And we provide grants and we provide, you know, support to mainly London-based charitable organisations. And the great news is that there's never been a type of particular charitable sector that we would not engage with. It's absolutely, you know, across the board. And that's been one of the attractions of the City Bridge Trust.
Is the city totally responsible for the bridge maintenance?
It is. It really is. So TfL will look after the road that goes underneath it.
Yeah.
But obviously the bridge is maintained
the structure.
by the city.
Yeah. That's incredible,
so
isn't it?
It is. And when you think about, you know, those, if one of those old Victorian 200-year-old iron screws, you know, fell off, that has to be replaced and, you know, done in the proper historical way, and the city does all of that.
Yeah. You're also
it's fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating, and you know, when you sort of think of the capital cost of, for example, when they rebuilt London Bridge, I mean, it's quite a few years ago, but presumably that had to come out of city funds.
That did, and it very much did, and they have their ducks in a row, and that's why we should really applaud the officers to make sure, or you know, that they haven't depleted funds. Like they've been able to ensure that the reserves are available for any disasters, catastrophes, anything that will hit the infrastructure, and can actually step up to being able to rebuild it.
Yeah. You're also a member of the Gresham City Side Committee. That's to do with the Gresham College, is it?
That's right. So the Gresham College is, now this committee is something very close to me because when I was at uni, I actually used to go to the Gresham lectures that were being held. And what was a surprise to me after I joined the City of London Corporation is that this committee existed. I had no idea of it and I had no sight of it. And the interesting part to me was that this is to support the buildings and the almshouses and things like that, that the Gresham City Fund did support. So we also look at the appointments of the professors and the appointments of the college and things like that. And I have been a recipient of the Gresham lectures, and if you don't know very much about it, I really would, e- encourage you to go to the Gresham website, because now all of the lectures are available online.
Yeah.
And the great news is they're from eminent professors. We've recently had Professor Whitty, who also talked about, viruses and things like that way before or during the time of the pandemic. And therefore, you've got an insight into different topics, different subjects, which you normally would not have, and it's accessible to anyone worldwide. And that is just gold dust. And we are so fortunate, and I'm so fortunate that I'm now on the committee to be able to influence and be able to make some further suggestions to get to a wider reaching audience and to talk about wider ranging topics as well, because it's very important. It's an amazing institute, world class, world renowned, and an absolute, fascinating topics that they deliver. So it's been personal, on a personal level, a very, very, very close to my heart committee to join.
The Gresham endowment must have been huge at the time.
Well, this is it. And as a lawyer, who would have thought he felt philanthropy that was, to benefit, generations and generations after he left this world? And what a legacy. And it's just, not matched, I believe, anywhere else in the world.
No.
So we are very, very, very lucky to have it. Very lucky.
What one of the first? Yeah. So
absolutely.
So let's just sort of conclude this chat by taking a look at the role of the corporation promoting the city in both the UK, and the UK on a global basis, which of course it's doing all the time.
Well, Tony, we don't want to step on the toes of national government, but we do know that the actual efforts of the square mile means that London has a unique position. Our Lord Mayors do a phenomenal job travelling around the world promoting the square mile as a financial centre, developing, relationship and ties with different governments to support bringing companies to the city. And not only that, to provide the fact that we have got, world-class facilities anyway in London.
Yeah.
And part of the role as being a common councillor is to have that engagement and to have that exposure and to support all of that, because the City of London is the City of London at the end of the day. And we do recognise that companies and businesses can go anywhere in the world, and they do. But we do want to attract them in the City of London. So yes, it's brilliant. I'm just starting out on that route, and I'm looking forward to engaging more on that level, because I am from an international bias. I see myself as well as a global citizen, and I do really want to see London flourish.
Don't we all? Because
no.
really, in my view, my humble view, the success of the UK is very dependent on the success of the City of London.
Thanks, Tony. I concur completely. I don't believe many people sitting, say, in Leeds or Birmingham feel the same way, but I feel that we do have an upper hand in that area, and we do want to maintain that definitely. And it's one of the important parts of being in the UK. London is London, and we do want to make it thrive and be successful in the future.
Yeah. Nighat, it's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to have this chat. Thank you so much for sparing me some time. Hope to meet up sometime in the future. You take care.
We're looking forward to having you in Guildhall very soon. And thank you very much for your time today as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the